Okay, so in this video we're going to look at mats, which is basically a process of hiding and revealing parts of an image. So if I just show you this example, we have a series of sort of animated mats here that are hiding and revealing parts of the footage. Okay, so we're going to have a look at how we create this. Okay, so firstly if you open the start file, which is called mats, and then if you drag the add clip MP4 down into the timeline, this is the footage that we're going to use. Sorry, my rendering is very slow on my machine, so it'll just take a minute for that to become visible. Okay, so now we've dragged the add clip MP4 down into the timeline. We can see the preview here. It's probably just an idea to zoom out, so hold down Control and mouse wheel out just a bit so you can see the edges of the composition. Then if you use the rectangular shape tool, so if you click on that, now if you just look at the settings for that here, just make sure stroke is set to 0 and choose a white fill. Then if you drag out, so we'll just do this freehand, so if you drag out a rectangular shape roughly similar to mine that kind of spans vertically the whole of the footage, so we'll just do it freehand. Okay, once you've done that, if you click on the move tool, we're going to duplicate this layer. So if we go down to the timeline here, click on the shape layer. Okay, click on the shape layer, Control D, and that will duplicate it. Okay, and then if you mouse over the make sure you're on the duplicated shape layer 2, mouse over it, begin to drag. As you drag, hold down Shift so it just constrains the drag, and again drag it like mine till you've got just a little thin gap between the two of them. Okay, and then continue that process. So if I now click on shape layer 2, Control D again, we'll do that twice, so we've got 4 shapes in total, and then we'll drag off the sorry, let me do that in the right order. Just make sure you pay attention to which layer you're on here. So if we now go to shape layer 3, we'll drag that off, again holding down Shift, and then again we're just doing this freehand for this one. Again, just remember you can use on your keyboard the right and left arrow keys to fine-tune, incrementally move things, so you can use those to adjust that. And then if we finally go to layer 4 and again drag that off, and we'll just line that up. Again, you can use right and left hand up and down to just fine-tune that movement until it matches in terms of the gap between them and it's spanning vertically the whole of the image. Now I want to just move all of them together now. So if I hold down Shift, good old Shift click on the 4 of them, and then I can just drag those to the left and align that. Okay, so now we want to turn these 4 shapes into a mat. So again, if we shift click, so we click on shape layer 1, shift click on layer 4 to select all 4 of them, right click and go to pre-compose. We'll call this mat 1. Okay, and then we'll OK that, and that will take us through to the view of the mat. Okay, so now to start animating this, now we're inside this mat view here. If you look at the top here, it says composition mat 1. If we move the playhead to about 15 frames, okay, and then we're going to select the position property of all 4 layers. So again, if we shift click on all 4 and press P, and you'll see that familiar position timer. If we click on the timer to insert a keyframe on all layers at 15 frames, move the playhead back to 0. Okay, and then if we move the playhead, like I said, back to 0, just click in the layer panel here, click to deselect all layers. Then with just the layer 4 here, which is this shape here, just click on the add keyframe here at 0 frames for that one, and then if we drag this one up, if we hold down Shift as we drag it to constrain the drag, Okay, and then if we just drag that off top of the stage. Okay, and then if we just repeat that process with the other three, so move on to the next one. Again, not forgetting to insert a keyframe. We'll drag this one down, shift drag again. Just remember, if you start to try and drag something with shift held down, it won't drag. So you need to just take your finger off shift, start to drag, and then press shift. It's just a little thing to remember. Now, another thing you'll have noticed there is that when we move the player to 0, you don't necessarily have to click here. Just starting to move something on, as long as that particular layer is selected, it will automatically insert a keyframe. Okay, so if we just scrub the playhead, we can see we've created our little animated animation there. Okay, so now we're going to add an ease to the animation here. So we're applying some of the techniques that we've used previously. So if we drag a selection around these keyframes here, okay, press F9 on the keyboard, and you will see the keyframe icons here appear to change to that familiar shape from a diamond to the new shape, and that signifies that there's an ease now applied to those. And if you remember, we can also modify this ease. So if we open the graph, okay, and then we can manipulate this graph to obviously manipulate the ease. So if we click on the second keyframe here, we can adjust this, we can move it. Yeah, and actually, just to make an important point here with the graph, so we've got a graph, an individual graph for each of these 4 layers here. So just make sure when you select this second keyframe that you click and drag again a selection around this second keyframe, so you're selecting all 4 graphs. So we'll move that, adjust that a bit, and then if you remember, we can use the handle to adjust. So we're going to start off, it's going to ease out fairly rapidly and then ease back in slightly more slowly, as represented by the graph. And again, we can test that out, so you'll see it'll start off, it'll ease in fairly rapidly and then okay, so again, like we've done previously, we can go back to the layer view. So if I just turn off the graph there, we can adjust this, so we can adjust the start point of the various layers. You could have a staggered start point for each one. You could maybe have a shorter animation on one more over another by bringing in reducing the distance between the first keyframe and the second one, etc. So you can have a bit of a play with that. It's always good to experiment, and again, reusing and applying techniques that we've covered previously. Okay, so if we just go back to the timeline here, so we've got the matte view at the moment here that we're inside the matte. If we go back to the main view, the footage here, you can see that we've got our pre-composed matte that we've created here is all nested inside this layer. Now just make sure, if you go down to the bottom left here of the screen, this little toggle switch here just turns the track matte view on and off. Okay, so just make sure that's turned on. Now if we go down to the add clip layer, under where it says track matte here, the moment it's set to none, if we just set that to alpha matte, so turning matte 1, the one we've created, into an alpha matte, okay, and you will see now we can see the video appears underneath. So we all know that alpha means transparency, so that makes our matte transparent and it reveals the video footage underneath. Okay, now just remember you can switch back and forward between the two. So if you wanted to go back and adjust the matte, then you can just click on the matte tab here, go back, adjust, and then back to the footage view here, the ad clip view, and see how that looks in the final form. So really the beauty of this is our own custom made mat. We can make any kind of type of mat we want using this technique. Once we have created the pre-composed mat here, we can still edit the mat layer. So if we expand the layer, we've got various transform settings that we're familiar with. So you might want to play with the opacity of it, or you might want to rotate it. So you can animate these as well. So there's all sorts of possibilities. So it'd be an idea to have an experiment with that if you want to experiment with some of these options. Okay, so just to briefly illustrate that, we've changed the opacity, we've changed the rotation here. We can click on the timer. Sorry, let me just move the playhead back. We can click on the timer for rotation at 0. We can move the playhead to the end of the clip and rotate, and that will automatically create a second keyframe. So just again applying these kind of real fundamental animation techniques to the track matting process. Okay, so final thing, as we normally do when we create a composition, and when we've finished it, we're going to render this as an MP4. So if we go to File and Export, we'll send it through to Media Encoder, and the process of encoding it as an MP4, so I'm not going to go through that again, but then you'll have your final composition in a fully exported form.